Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Whitney Ward.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Mark Hanrahan. They are calling it the first task force of its kind in this area. Starting this weekend, police officers and deputies from several agencies in North Idaho are teaming up to create the North Idaho DUI Task Force.
Now, as KREM 2's Taylor Vito explains, it's unique and that it will draw officers from outside of their normal areas, all in the hope of catching drunk drivers. So he joins us now live from the newsroom with more. Taylor?
Yeah, guys, well, they even have their own logo. You will see this on patrol rigs on certain weekends in North Idaho. It's yet another step in combating an issue that doesn't appear to be going anywhere.
We don't have to look too far into the recent past to how this affects lives.
It was just last weekend when, tragically without doubt, a local family's life was shattered. A 38-year-old man in this car died, and cops said the guy who hit him was drunk.
Because it is so preventable. And we want to get out there and really start enforcing the DUI laws.
So to clamp down on drunk drivers, agencies in Kootenai County have started this, the North Idaho DUI Task Force. It's made up of Idaho State Police, the Sheriff's Office, and the county's 4 city police departments. Each agency provides officers to the task force. What's unique is those cops can work anywhere in the county outside their normal jurisdiction. Simply put, the task force allows extra cops to be on the streets during emphasis patrols.
We want to be able to put as many bodies out there and prevent as much crime and death and destruction as possible.
And the task force says those extra cops won't be taking away from regular staffing levels in their respective areas. Sheriff Ben Wolfinger calls it the first of its kind in the area, and the creation is timely. In 2017, there were about 130 more DUI arrests across the county compared to the year before.
So our numbers are growing rather rapidly.
Our ultimate goal here would be we don't have to arrest anyone because nobody's driving drunk.
The North Idaho DUI Task Force will be in effect for the first time this weekend for St. Patrick's Day. There are about 10 other proposed weekends they'd be out this year. Those range from the 4th of July to the County Fair and Scarywood. In the newsroom, Taylor Vito, KREM 2 News.
These are people who I would describe as having extremist views that have absolutely no place in New Zealand and, in fact, have no place in the world.
At least 49 people are dead and dozens wounded after a gunman opened fire on Muslim worshippers at 2 mosques in New Zealand. The country's prime minister was calling it a well-planned terrorist attack fueled by hate.
The shooter targeted 2 mosques in Christchurch that were packed for Friday prayers. 3 people are now in custody. None of them had a criminal record, but the prime minister says they are far-right extremists.
A former KREM 2 morning anchor now calls New Zealand home. Dawn Picken worked for KREM for 8 years before starting a new life all the way across the world. Yeah,
KREM 2's Alexa Block talked with her about her life in New Zealand now and how this shooting has rocked the entire country.
The problem starts here with these blue recycling bins.
For years, we woke up with Dawn Picken in the morning on KREM 2 News. She left KREM in 2008, and after losing her husband in 2010, she decided to take a leap of faith and began traveling around the world with her 2 kids. They eventually settled in New Zealand.
To me, New Zealand has felt like one of the last safe places in the world. It's one of the reasons why I'm happy to have my children in school here. And I'm pleased that they get to grow up in a society with such a low murder rate, with such a low rate of gun violence.
So Picken was shocked when she heard about the shootings at 2 mosques that left dozens dead or injured.
This is not something that typically happens in New Zealand.
She showed me the front page of her local newspaper. It says it's the darkest day.
New Zealand it's a safe country. It's one of the reasons that a lot of us like living here is because of that feeling of safety, and that has really been shattered.
And it's not just the act that was so shattering. It's the motive behind it. New Zealand officials believe the shooter was motivated by hate.
We're standing in solidarity with our Muslim brothers and sisters and just trying to let it all settle in.
Picken is hopeful her fellow New Zealanders will come together and begin to heal.
I think that New Zealanders are really resilient and will get through this.
Alexa Block, KREM 2 News.
In other news, crews from the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office pulled a car out of Hayden Lake. It took them several hours, in part because the dive team had to turn the car over underwater before they could tow it out. Police say 37-year-old John Hamilton was under the influence when he drove out onto the lake and his car fell through the ice over the weekend. He survived, and Hamilton is now facing DUI charges.
Well, the last time we hit 40 degrees before today was February 2nd, so I'd say this weather is worth celebrating.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Tom Sherry in the Weather Center tonight talking about more spring-like temperatures, Tom.
Yeah, it's been great. We actually had a high today of 44 degrees. The last time it was warmer than that was back on January 6th when it was 45 degrees. So again, enjoying some beautiful weather here in the inland Northwest, ending our 40-day streak of below 40-degree temperatures. When you take a look at what we've got going on over the next 12 hours, you can see it gets cold again. We're going to drop down into the 20s. We melted a lot of that snow. Now that water is going to freeze up, so the potential for more black ice, especially on the neighborhood roads. Be aware of that. Should be a fabulous weekend. Partly cloudy on Saturday, mostly sunny expected on Sunday. High temperatures expected in the upper 40s. Take a look at this. This is a computer outlook for late next week into the following weekend, calling for above average temperatures in the Pacific Northwest, and we'll see about average precipitation expected as well. So looks like maybe we'll end March warmer than what we saw when we entered it, when it was awfully cold. I'll have a look at your 10-day outlook coming up in a few minutes.
Tom, thank you. Well, with all that melting, we know our winter flower, otherwise known as the pothole, is definitely starting to bloom.
Not a very good looking flower,
No.
if I might add. It's all because of that freeze-thaw cycle we're in right now. KREM 2's Shayna Waldtower tells us how this year compares to previous years.
Well, we've all done it when you're driving along the road and then you're trying to swerve and avoid spots like this. Yeah, the potholes that make you cringe when you hit them. Well, with all the snow melting recently, you're able to see them a whole lot more, but the city actually says they're not as bad as previous years.
It's a little rough out here, and it's probably only going to get worse. Right now, temperatures are below freezing at night, but then rising above freezing during the day. This freeze-thaw cycle causes water in the roads to expand and contract, ultimately forming potholes. And as spring continues, we could be seeing more of this type of weather. But while it may seem pretty bad now, it's not quite as bad as previous years. Marlene Feist with the City of Spokane says the city has had more opportunities to fill some of those potholes.
Now this year, the city's actually a little bit ahead of schedule. Since January, they filled about 1,400 potholes. Now this was because back in January, we didn't get a lot of snow, so the crews were able to fill a bit more of those holes back in that month. Now for the entire year of 2018, they filled about 4,600 holes, and then in 2017, about 4,800.
Now the real test will be over the next several weeks. If temperatures continue to fluctuate between above and below freezing, more potholes could start to appear. So Feist says crews will be out mostly in the spring and summer months working on those trouble spots. Shayna Waldtower, KREM 2 News.
And the thing is, that pothole that she was standing in, some of them really do feel that big.
Right, when you hit them, you're like, oh my gosh, I just lose my wheel?
Yes, exactly.